Welcome back to the 98% Life After Prison. Our podcast is dedicated to the vast majority of incarcerated people in North Carolina who will eventually be coming home to our communities, often with little more than the clothes on their backs. I'm April Barber Scales.
And I'm Judy Van Wyk. Welcome back to part 2 of our special bonus series, TROSA, Reclaiming Lives Through Community. TROSA, which stands for Triangle Residential Options for Substance Abusers, a mouthful, is a nonprofit substance use recovery program that's been providing long-term residential treatment and vocational training for more than 30 years. Based in Durham, TROSA has become an integral part of the Triangle community, with its variety of services that include lawn care, a thrift store, and a moving company.
Today we're going to profile 2 graduates of the TROSA program who have transformed their lives and are now helping others suffering from substance use disorder. We begin by meeting Dymont Spellman. After years of chaos created by his addiction, Dymont realized he was either going to die or spend the rest of his life in prison if he didn't change his life. After going through the entire 2-year program, he graduated from TROSA in 2020 with his certification as a peer support specialist. A year later, Dymont joined TROSA's staff as a residential house manager, facilitating classes and mentoring men who have just joined the program.
I grew up in a single-parent home. Raised by my mom. I have 2 brothers and also a sister. When I was born, my sister was already out the house. She was 16 years old. She was about to get married, and she was having her own child. And I'm like the somewhat middle child. I'm right beneath my sister as far as age. And life was okay. I had a great mom. She was very religious, and things were great. Until I got around 12 years old. Like I said, I didn't have a father growing up in the home for majority of my life. And I think I kind of resented my mom. I didn't know why my father wasn't there, but I was somewhat an angry little fella. I was getting fights at school and I was just becoming troublesome. My biggest thing was my anger. I was very angry. Got kicked out of school quite a few times. Middle school, got kicked out for fighting. When I went back to high school, got kicked out. Around that time, I quit going to school. I started hanging out around my peers, friends, and we all had something in common. Single parent home, and we were very, very rebellious. We did what we wanted to do. We sold drugs. We did a lot of things that today I look back at that I'm not proud of. We robbed people. We did whatever because now looking back at it, I feel like we're just doing what we want to do, and we really didn't have anybody to look up to as far as like a male figure. And the people we did look up to, they hung out on the streets and they sold drugs.
So you were kind of part of a neighborhood gang, is that right?
Yeah, kind of. It was a crew of us. Yeah. It was a crew of us. Yeah. I think when I went to prison the first time, I got involved into an actual gang, and it was in North Carolina. So the prison was in North Carolina, and I started repping the gang. My first prison term, I did 18 months. I was around 20 years old. And I went into the prison, and you hear the stories about going to prison. You got to portray that image of being a tough guy. So I got involved with a gang. 18 months really wasn't long, but it was part of my life that I probably won't be able to shut out or forget about because it was so devastating to the point where I don't never want to go back to prison again. I really didn't gain any life skills or anything like that. And I was released from prison and went back to the same thing, hanging out to the streets, hanging around my friends, and they were all in gangs too. And some of us was in similar gangs. So, got involved with that. with the gang mentality, I ended up getting shot. I got shot 6 times. 5 bullets grazed me. 1 went through my shoulder. After that, I started carrying a gun. In Elizabeth City, very small town, started carrying a gun, and I ended up shooting somebody. When I shot this person, I thought I was going to prison for the rest of my life. And I stayed on the run for a little while. I recall me riding in the back of a F-150 with a wig on, laid down in the back of the vehicle in the trunk bed, and I went to go hide out. This place where I went to go hide out, it was in the country part of Elizabeth City, a place called Newland. And the house that I was hanging at, it was infested with drugs, people coming in and out using, and eventually I got caught because they had a reward for me, and somebody gave me up. So I ended up going to jail, and I stayed there for 15 months. That's around at 15 months, a lawyer came, court-appointed lawyer, and he said, hey, I might have a deal for you. He said, you might be getting out. I got an open plea for you, and if you sign this, you may get out of jail with time served. Went to court. Like I said, it was an open plea, and the judge gave me 45 to 63 months. When I went to prison this time, it was the big prisons like Lanesboro, Scotland's, Murray's, Pasquotank. And when I entered prison, I went straight to the hole after fighting somebody, because you got to keep your rep up. You got to do something to prove that don't nobody need to mess with you. So I got put in SEG for fighting, got shipped to Scotland, and then ended up in SEG because I didn't really follow the rules in prison. I always was getting into something. And in this prison, I set my room on fire, set the mattress on fire when I was in the hole. And then they sent me to Central Prison. They said, hey, something's got to be wrong with this guy. He's going to set the mattress on fire, and he's in the room. So they talked about arson charges and all that, and I was scared to death. I went to Central Prison, and in Central Prison, they had me in like the psych ward, and I really seen some strange things in the psych ward, right? The guys in psych ward, they were kind of like, they weren't mentally stable, and they would do certain things. They would throw feces at the guards, and the guards up there, I witnessed them beating them up when I was there in the psych ward. So I was scared for my life. So eventually I went to Murray, then I got transferred to Pasquotank. Things started to get better because I'm from Elizabeth City. My mom came and visited me. My son's mother came and visited me. And I was secured being at Pasquotank because I was home. All the guards pretty much knew me, or somebody in my family was a guard. So I calmed down. Got out of prison. I really didn't have anywhere to go because I had a shooting charge and my mom got kicked out of her home. So she definitely wasn't allowing me to come back to her home. I seen this place in the newspaper, the Daily Advance, in Elizabeth City, and it said, new halfway house, recovery house, Christian base, Barnabas House. It was on the outskirts of Weeksville. And I knew that was a sign. I said, hey, I'm going to go to this place because I ain't got nowhere to go at. And I ended up going to that place called the Barnabas House. Really great people there. I met MC Brewer, Miss Mary Catherine, a lot of great people that's still in my life today, right? But I really didn't want to change. I needed somewhere to go at, and I stayed there for 9 months. Whole time I would use. I learned how to not use drugs before I went to my PO. I knew when he was going to meet me, and I just skated under the radar and just stayed there because I needed somewhere to stay at. Once my 9 months was over with for my parole, I moved in with my son and his mother, Samantha. Eventually, she kicked me out. I went back to the streets, selling drugs, doing mischievous things, robbing people, stealing from people, and just being out the streets, sleeping in abandoned houses. And eventually I went to jail. Ended up going back to jail, 3 months here, 2 months here, until I got a 9-month stint in jail. When I got released from jail, I told my sister, I said, hey, I'm going to change. I'm a changed man. You know, she gave me a couple of dollars and I went straight to the dope man house. When it got high, it was the worst feeling that I ever felt. I knew I needed change. I went to my mom's house. She said, no, you can't come here. So I called my sister. She said, I'm giving you 2 weeks to find somewhere to go at. You needed help. So I called my Uncle Charlie. He struggled with addiction on and off. He can be clean for a couple of years and go right back to it. And he said, hey, there's a place in Durham called TROSA. If you go there, you get your life together. So I came. When I got to TROSA, it was illuminating. It's like the day was the brightest day in the world. It was April the 5th, 2018. I remember it just like it was yesterday. I got to TROSA and went to the intake process. And I remember when I came in, I had long hair. You know, they took me to the north side, the old abandoned school building on the north side of Durham. And when I got here, everybody was saying, hey man, I'm glad you're here. I'm proud of you. And it was kind of strange because I never had that much support, and especially from people that I didn't know. You know, so when I got to the north side, they gave me a shadow. A shadow is the guy that's going to follow you around until you get to know the rules. His name was Joe Marks. And he said, hey, bud. He said, I hope you're not so attached to your hair because you're going to have to cut it off. And I said, I'm willing to do anything to get my life together.
What do you think, what was the stopping point? You had been through treatment before.
Yes, ma'am. At the time when I went to the Barnabas house, I really didn't want to change. I still felt like I had another run in me. I wasn't at the point where I was ready to give it all up and surrender. Versus the last time I used, right? I really thought people were going to kill me. I was going to end up in prison for the rest of my life. I could call it like divine spirits. I call it God talking to me. But at that point, I knew I was going to die or end up in prison for the rest of my life if I didn't stop. And I was scared to go back to prison. You know, I really didn't enjoy it.
Let's talk about TROSA and why TROSA worked. What was it about TROSA that really resonated with you?
There was a U.S. Marine here. His name was Chris Griffith. He would call me out on my stuff. He was nice, but he could be very polite on the way that he would tell me about me. You know, he would call me out on my stuff. And not just him. Majority of the people in the men's program. You know, guys from being in prison to now they've been here successful 15, 20 plus years. And I really cling to those guys because I said, I figured out if they can do it, I can do it. You know, my past didn't define the person who I could become if I just done things right. People genuinely care about you and you ain't got nothing for them. They just want you to get your life together.
Yeah, there's a question that's just nagging me, and that is about your anger. It sounds like your anger fueled a lot of your behavior for many years. How did you come to terms with your anger?
I realized that anger was just an emotion. I probably live with it for the rest of my life. But the only thing that dictated me was how I handled my anger. They have a thing here called games. You know, and games, they're Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, right? So if I had a problem, I would have to wait until Monday to confront somebody, you know? And I learned how to do that pretty well. I also taught anger management. And in the literature, it states that anger is emotion. You may get angry for the rest of your life, but how you deal with the anger could be different. I learned to do different things when I got angry. I learned to breathe, learned to talk to people, and I learned to play the game with my peers when I got angry. So it's just control. being able to control it. Being able to say, hey, anger, you are smaller than me. I'm in control of you.
TROSA has like jobs, that community-based jobs that the residents do. What were the skills and the jobs that you had?
My first job, my CA, was the TROSA thrift store. At the TROSA thrift store, I did a number of jobs. I also worked on the delivery trucks and the donation pickups, where we would go to people's homes and they would donate things. We would put them on a truck and we would transport them back to the thrift store. You know, and I met a lot of great people on the trucks. TROSA Thrift is definitely a big part of Durham. A lot of people really enjoy the thrift store and they believe in what TROSA is doing. I recall sometimes I would go to a family house and maybe the mother, sons or daughters struggle with addiction. It definitely affected me different to be able to go to someone's home and they cry and tell me they wish their son could have made it to a program like TROSA. You know what I mean? That's my first incident where I was able to feel emotion and go through the emotion and feel like I was doing something better for myself. My second job, which I received when I had 8 months in the program, was working with the men's program. In the men's program, I worked side by side with Chris Griffith, who was over the interns. Interns are the guys that come in for 30 days, 1 to 30 days, and they're adjusting to the program. They learn the rules, and they're just getting off the streets, they're getting out of prison, they're coming from all these different places in life, and I was able to help them for their first 30 days. You know, I really, really enjoy that. That's what I do today. You know, I work with the guys from 1 to 30 days. So it's kind of full circle, you know, that was a job that I was got, and that's what I still do because I have a passion for it, because don't everybody understand when they get to TROSA or why or what they need to change. They might have an idea, because my idea was like get a big house, get a girlfriend, have a dog with a fence around it, and I obtained so much better. I obtained structure, responsibility, being dependable, and being a different person.
Tell me about your life today. How far have you come, would you say?
Today, my mother is proud of me. Before coming here, I thought that my actions really didn't hurt nobody else besides me. My mom is definitely proud of me. You know, recalling like times I took her through like traumatic things, like getting her kicked out, knocking on the window at 3:00 in the morning to get in the house. I'm a leader. People here really count on me, and they know if they ever need to talk or they're going through it, they can count on me. I'm a great boyfriend, you know, great friend. All the things that were bad, they turned to good, you know, in every aspect. I'm very, very, very respectful. I got a heart today. I feel like I got purpose.
Dymont says his work at TROSA is about giving back. It's about showing the guys who are just beginning their journey towards sobriety that change is possible, regardless of their past. You know, April, he makes me think of something Keith Arton, TROSA's CEO, told me. He said that people can come to TROSA to get sober, but it's really through helping others and lifting them up that people are truly able to transform their lives.
Yeah, I have that experience. As a peer support specialist, you walk with others to help them through their journey, and it helps add perspective to your own life as to what you've been through and the direction that you want it to go in.
And you're good at it.
Well, I don't know if I'm good at it, but they seem to keep me around. And now I'm on the other end of it as an intake coordinator. So I'm not walking alongside of them. And it's an adjustment because I always be a peer first. And now I get to kind of direct them toward their goals now, as opposed to just walking alongside them with their journey.
Interesting. Next, we're going to hear from another TROSA graduate, Kristie Foy. Kristie graduated in 2023, and like Dymont, she got her Peer Support Specialist certification. Today, Kristie works for Freedom House in Durham, and she regularly goes back to visit the women at TROSA. She says she goes there to share her story, and she also likes to volunteer to cut the women's hair. Take a listen to Kristie's story.
My childhood was actually really great. My dad joined the Marine Corps right out of high school, so I've been a military brat all the way up through high school. I got to move a lot and see the world. I've lived in all the way from California, San Diego, California, to Iowa, to Hawaii, Guam, Okinawa, South Carolina, and then finally North Carolina. And my dad decided to retire right as I was graduating high school. I had a daughter at a young age. I was it was like summer of freshman year, I got pregnant. After I had my daughter, she was about 6 months old, and I started to go through just all kinds of pain, high fevers. The doctors were checking all of these things, like, okay, what's going on with her? We couldn't figure it out. I lost a significant amount of weight. My hands would swell really bad. Like, they would have to bring me to the emergency room for ice baths. I couldn't pick my daughter up. I had to wear, my senior year in high school, it was so bad I had to wear like those shower shoe flip-flops, like the lightest possible thing you could think of, because it would just hurt so bad. So, and I say all that because it's a significant part of during all that time, I never used any kind of pain pills. And then end up, after healing and going through all of that, ending up later down the road getting addicted to pain pills. So my childhood was really good. I mean, no complaints there.
So you graduated from high school, and you met your husband, and you got married, and you had a couple of children, right?
So with this husband, I had two. I already had one from high school. I had my oldest daughter. And then with my first husband, I had two children. And that's when my addiction started, was with my first husband. Started with like drinking on the weekends, to cocaine on the weekends, to ecstasy on the weekends, to partying just on the weekends. And then I ended up getting in a car accident. And they put me on the pain pills. And believe it or not, the first time they gave them to me, I took one and didn't take any more. I had a girl that I waitressed with that wanted to buy them from me. I said, okay, I don't want them. Gave her the whole bottle for $20 because I had no idea. And actually, I went on to cosmetology school. And that's where I started dabbling with pills. One of the girls that I was in cosmetology school with, she was addicted to them. And I walked in the bathroom and I walked in on her snorting the pill. I was like, well, why do you do that? And curiosity killed the cat. And there it began. I started sniffing the pills. I was addicted immediately. It got me through the rest of cosmetology school. And I did that for years in a quote, quote, stable, an active addiction, but I was stable. I had a house, I had my kids, I had the husband, I had the dog, I worked 2 jobs. I went to school and waitressed at 2 different places all the way through school, graduated school, went on to work at hair salons, and so on and so forth. All in active addiction, all normal. Nobody had any clue.
Do you have any idea what triggered the addiction? Was there anything that was going on in your life, or was it just, do you think, something that was biochemical?
You know, I sometimes will ponder on that, and I believe, that it was probably biochemical, but there was also like little things that would happen in my life. For instance, I found out that my first husband was a sex addict, and that triggered a lot because he had been calling phone sex lines, and things definitely got worse at that point because I felt like it was me. Like, I blame myself for some reason. But in reality, years down the road, I realized he had an addiction. That's an addiction in itself as well, just like any other thing. So between drugs and that, we split. And my addiction got worse and worse. My parents were finding out, and they asked me to go to rehab, go to detox, and that would be my first time going to detox. I went to Walter B. Jones. I remember I was very sick. You're in a detox and it's cold in there, and I'm coming off pain pills for the very first time ever. I was in so much pain. I was mentally exhausted. I was just sick all the way around. And that was really the first time I realized I'm an addict. I'm an addict. And that place gave me the idea to get on methadone. So I started methadone. And then for years I was going to the methadone clinic, but also using. I started getting really bad on Xanax, and I would drink. I started dating this guy he went to the clinic, but he was also an alcoholic, and he was mean when he drank, very abusive. There was a time my son was like 2 years old, and I was giving him a bath, and I had just set him in the bath, and the guy that I was dating at this time, he was drunk under the influence, and he punched me in the face, and my kid like slid in the tub, and I made a decision not to get my kids anymore. That's how bad my addiction was. That went on for quite some time. Finally, I called my family. They came and rescued me, as they always would. If I said I wanted help and I was going to stop, they would always come. They always wanted me to get sober. They always pushed, and, they just didn't know how to help me. But I stole from them plenty as well, too. I racked up a credit card in my mom's name that she didn't know about. I opened a credit card in her name, not once but twice. Stole money from my dad. I just, the typical things that someone in addiction does. Steal, rob, hurt, and it just is a spinning cycle, and it just never would stop. But I finally left Chris and went on and ended up meeting another guy. See the picture here, right? An addiction, kept meeting these men that were no good for me. Met the next husband, and from there, methadone, just addiction continuing. I had 2 more kids with him, so I have a total of 5 kids. My mom and dad adopted my 2 youngest. This was right before I decided, okay, enough is enough. And I kept hearing about this program called TROSA. In all that story, I kind of missed where I was in and out of jail. I did a long prison sentence. I missed that part. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
That's a lot.
How long is a long prison sentence?
I did almost 3 years, about 2.5 years in prison, and still actively used in prison. Actively used, would have my grandma send money in. Oh, I'm taking this class, Grandma. I'm doing this. It was always hooray, Kristie, but it wasn't ever a real hooray. It was manipulating and finding the next way to get my next fix.
And at that point, you were shooting heroin.
Yes, I had started shooting heroin right before I went to the longer prison sentence. There's a lot of drugs in prison, a lot of drugs in prison. So I continued my addiction. It didn't stop. You know, that typical saying where, oh, go to prison. No, that's not true. I mean, it's a choice. You can make that choice in prison or out of prison that you want to get clean and sober. And my choice didn't happen in prison. My choice happened after my longer sentence, and then after a 90-day CRV, and then after maybe a couple more jail for stealing, like when I was high. And then finally I overdosed. I guess I was getting arrested for stealing, and I had a bag of fentanyl on me, and I'm in the back of the cop car, and I'm not 100% sure because this part of it's kind of in and out for me, but apparently I swallowed a bag of dope one way or another, and I went out in the back of the cop car. They got me, they Narcaned me, got me kind of back, and then I was, I guess, in the holding cell, and I went out completely. And that's where this scar came from. I hit my head on something. The ambulance came and got me. They were rushing me out, and Narcan wasn't bringing me back. They went to intubate me. And when they intubated me, they hit a main artery. So I'm bleeding internally is what this scar came from. So I'm overdosed fentanyl, bleeding internally, and COVID positive, and somehow make it through all of this. I'm getting ready to go into surgery. They call my mom because that's my emergency contact at the hospital. They call, they say, we're taking your daughter into surgery from an overdose. We don't think she's going to make it.
It sounds like by the time that you overdosed, you were on the brink of just checking out, just going. And it sounds like there was something in you that held you back, that you had to really decide you wanted to live.
That's definite. Because for the last year of my addiction, I was living in a hotel and selling my body. I was tricking. I was selling my body. I've just now been able to say that out loud and share that with people in general because it's very shameful for me. But I also think that my story can help people. So I've decided that I'm not ashamed anymore. I'm going to share my story, and I'm going to share it raw just like it is so other people can relate and understand. I want people to hear it. I want people to understand how serious this thing is. Because what if I touch somebody that hasn't gotten that far yet? And I share that story today because I'm just trying to save the next person. I just want to help the next person.
So you had tried to detox before. When you came to TROSA, why do you think TROSA worked for you where other programs had not?
TROSA is a one-stop shop. It has the length. The program's 2 years. Inside the program, they offer not only mental health help and education, but physical health help and education, group therapy, working therapy. TROSA gives you a place to go and rebuild your life from scratch. I would recommend TROSA to anybody in this world. I am so thankful for this program. They have changed my life. I still come back. I come back and I share my story. I come back and I cut the women's hair. I come back and talk to Kathleen and Sandy all the time. I still passionately love TROSA.
Tell me about your life today.
Life is good today. I have a nice little apartment. You know, we started out in TROSA housing, then we moved into a 1-bedroom apartment, and now we have a 2-bedroom apartment. And that 2-bedroom apartment it's my world. I'm proud of that little spot. I mean, I'm grateful. I'm proud. You know, if somebody wants to know my story, I'll share it, absolutely. But I don't want anybody to think it just comes to you that easy, because it doesn't. You have to work for this. You really have to work for what I have. I had to work really hard for what I have. So I do want people to understand that part of it. If you put the work in, you will get the results.
I asked Kristie who is raising her children. Her oldest daughter and 2 youngest children are being raised by her parents. Her 2 middle children are with their father, who is currently living with his parents. Kristie has a new boyfriend who is also a TROSA graduate. Together, they've started an online clothing boutique called Kristie's Boutique of Durham, where folks who are suffering from addiction can come to find resources and community, and even buy a $20 t-shirt.
That's our show for today. We'll be exploring a variety of new topics in our upcoming season, such as PICS or post-incarceration syndrome. We'll also meet an ambitious young man who plans to turn a decommissioned prison into a campus for returning citizens, a place where they can get the work and life skills they need to become productive members of the community. Stay tuned.
And if you want to get in touch or just listen to old episodes, check out our website, www.the98-lifeafterprisonpodcast.com. Again, that's www.the98-lifeafterprisonpodcast.com. We'll see you soon. Bye.